Hey guys, this is Cosmic Road. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Thanks for joining me, guys. I appreciate it. I hope you're having a good Thursday. Please hit like, please subscribe. Share this link on social media. That'd be awesome. I'll wait for a few seconds for people to get in here. How you guys doing on a beautiful Thursday? I hope it's beautiful wherever you are. But today I wanted to talk about Kit Green in the Scintilla alien autopsy footage, and not just the Scintilla alien autopsy footage, because it looks like he was actually shown earlier autopsy footage as well. And this is super fascinating. So get in here and let's talk about it. Kit Green is a fascinating figure in ufology. CIA guy, a scientist connected to remote viewing and other very intriguing aspects of the government's interest in the phenomenon. NewsArk says, thanks for your great channel, Jack. Oh, I really appreciate that. Thank you, NewsArk. Well, let's see. There was a series of leaked emails from Kit Green with some really juicy stuff in it. And so I wanted to go over those leaked emails from Kit Green, who I really don't know much about. He's one of those people that comes up a lot in my research, but I have to confess, I don't really know much about him. I know he set the CIA's weird desk and handled, he was the Fox Mulder, if you will, of the CIA a little bit, coupled with Scully because he was a scientist. And he has had his own out-of-body experience, and he was connected to remote viewing. Here is, before I get into his leaked emails, I'll share with you one of, or at least maybe his only out-of-body experience, because this was really interesting. Let's see, this is an excerpt from a book. Is this from Jacques Vallée's new book? Let's see. Colm Kelleher reminded me of an incident told in Jim Schnabel's book, Remote Viewers, using tips from Bob Monroe's books. Kit Green once tried to get out of his body in 1982 or 83. He succeeded in separating himself from his prone form like a crab molting from its old shell. He walked across the room, Schnabel writes, but now there were other beings in the room. There were monsters. Some kind of goblin hobbled up, put its nose right in front of his face, stared at him. Kit had difficulty getting back inside of his body, and he swore off remote viewing. So I thought that was really interesting. I've been trying to do remote viewing, but it's never happened for me. Out of body experiences. But it looks like he did use Bob Monroe's techniques. And I'm actually going through the Monroe Gateway series of meditations right now in an effort to have an out-of-body experience. So I'll let you know how that goes. But anyway, so Kit Green is an interesting cat. It really is. But let's get back to the leaked emails. Some of the juicy details, and then I'll get into the Richard Dolan information. Let's see. So regarding Colm Kelleher asking about the differences in the entity's brain structure, this is we're talking about the alien autopsy. Kit Green said, no corpus callosum. I don't know what that is. No sylvian fissure, no temporal lobe, no occipital lobe, no vernix, no cerebellum. I do know what a cerebellum is. I think I do. No medulla oblongata, no rugae. So their brains are very, very different. But we don't know. I don't know specifically what creature this was. Is this one of the Roswell creatures? Because those are said to be different than the typical grays. So I would like that clarified. Regarding Colm Kelleher asking about the entity's three-chambered heart being similar to that of a reptile, Kit Green said, yes, similar. No aorta in VC, was a single contiguous non-muscular vessel through the heart. So different brain, different heart, really interesting. If you're just joining me, this is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Today, I'm talking about Kit Green and what he had to say about alien autopsies. And we'll also be discussing the leaked emails from Kit Green that has some really interesting information. He's talking about different brain structures and different heart structures. Regarding Eric Davis asking on why the level of secrecy for this data, Kit Green says there is a belief by most people in high executive branch, excuse me, the dangers of doing this stuff live. I got terrible allergies. Regarding Eric Davis asking on why the level of secrecy for this data, there is a belief by most people in high executive branch appointed positions that the average person isn't able to understand or handle the complexity and would screw things up beyond belief. They, as long as they are in control, believe a Singaporean government model of a Lee Kuan Yew meritocracy, government by the most educated and elite and benevolent dictatorship. They believe what they read in Plato, Thomas Paine, Machiavelli, and they do not believe what they read in Aristotle, Jefferson, or Roosevelt. So interesting. So he's saying that people in charge of the UFO information, are treating us like babies, and they think they are benevolent dictators. So, that kind of aligns with what we're seeing, right? Regarding Eric Davis asking to clarify if the alien autopsy video is real or fake, he says, asked and answered. What can be more direct than the video is real? So, really interesting. Description of Kit's briefing via 2001 leaked emails, unofficial briefing at the Pentagon circa 1987-88. After Kit left the CIA, he was called into the Pentagon by a person in uniform. This person showed Kit the alien autopsy photos and reports, etc. The photos of the alien cadaver Kit saw were consistent with the cadaver seen in the 1995 Scintilla film and video. Kit was asked to professionally evaluate the material provided to him at this particular briefing. And if you've never seen the Scintilla autopsy video, I provided a link for it in the description, along with links to all of these things that I'm quoting and talking about. So hopefully some of you will be familiar with that. Hey Christian, how you doing? And John P Adventures has a very cool emoji. Devka says hello. Yeah. So who here has seen the Scintilla autopsy? You know what I'm talking about, right? Give me a thumbs up if you know what I'm talking about. And let's just go into the leaked emails. If you're just joining me, this is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal, and we're talking about Kit Green and the leaked emails that talk about the alien autopsy and other very juicy stuff. Kit Green set the weird desk at the CIA, connected to the government's remote viewing programs, and just a really interesting figure in all of this. Yeah, get in here. That's right. That's right. Okay, this is from Richard Dolan's website. It says members, but I'm not a member, and I was able to access this, so I don't think it's exclusive. This is a series of emails from early 2001, primarily discussing Kit Green's evaluation of the Scintilla alien autopsy film, released in 1995 and shown on Fox TV in 97. Although even by 2001, many commentators had already determined the film to be a hoax, Kit Green's analysis said otherwise. The autopsy is very compelling. And there's some people that say Stan Winston, the famous special effects guy, thought it was real. I don't know. That could be apocryphal, but it is very compelling. But I've always thought it was probably a hoax, and Scintilla himself said it was a hoax. And it's been pretty roundly debunked. However, some people are saying it was actually based on real footage. And Scintilla was recreating an actual alien autopsy. Others have said that no, that's all a cover. This is actually the real alien autopsy. So, Who knows? But Kit Green, well, let's just get into it. I'll read. If you don't know who Kit Green is, here's a page that can help. He is a scientist and former CIA intelligence officer with a long-standing connection to research into psi phenomena and UFOs. While at the CIA, he was known as the Keeper of the Weird. He is a close friend to Hal Puthoff, and like Puthoff, probably knows as much about the UFO ET situation as anyone out there. There's an 11-page leak, all emails dated from early spring of 2001. The four participants were Dr. Kit Green, Dr. Hal Puthoff, Eric Davis, and Colin Kelleher. CC'd on the various emails were Bob Bigelow, John Alexander, Kristen Zimmerman, and address noted only as well as a long string of numbers and letters. These last two recipients are unknown to me. This is Richard Dolan speaking. Other names are mentioned in the emails themselves, including Jacques Vallée at one point. There's a heavy connection with Bigelow, as Davis and Kelleher were both directly employed by Bigelow's organization, NIDS, that is the National Institute for Discovery Sciences. I love NIDS. It's like a Michael Crichton novel. Michael Crichton always wrote novels about scientists going to, or professionals of some sort, going to exotic locations to investigate some crazy sci-fi phenomena. And that's exactly what NIDS was, going to Skinwalker Ranch. Really awesome, at least from that point of view. In real life, it's kind of scary, but it's also very cool. The real life Twilight Zone. During these communications, Kit Green gave his opinion that the Santilli film was real and that the cadaver depicted in it was not human. The emails make it clear that Green received 3 different briefings on topics relevant to UFOs, Roswell, and alien bodies. These are described by Davis. That's Eric Davis. Briefing number 1, official briefing at the Pentagon circa 1981. While Kit was at the CIA, he was briefed on evidence that something, UFOs, was flying around. This evidence was in the form of collected intelligence data. There was no discussion of alien crash retrieval hardware or bodies in this venue. Briefing number 2, unofficial briefing at the Pentagon after, and this is 87 or 88, after Kit left the CIA, he was called into the Pentagon by a person in uniform. This person showed Kit the alien autopsy photos and reports. The photos of the alien cadaver Kit saw were consistent with the cadaver seen in 95 Santilli film and video. Kit was asked to professionally evaluate the material provided to him at this particular briefing. Official briefing number 3, 91 or 92, while at General Motors, Kit was called into the CIA. The CIA people wanted his medical forensic pathology expertise to examine and analyze some autopsy reports. The nature of these reports was left ambiguous during the briefing, but Kit was fully expecting them to be the alien autopsy reports he saw in briefing number 2. But then no action took place after this briefing occurred, and Kit was left hanging. And I can imagine how frustrating that would be, getting, closer and closer to the mystery. And just when you think you're going to be allowed in, they don't let you in. I can't imagine how frustrating that would be. These were Kit Green's 3 UFO alien-related briefings. 2 were described as official, 1 as unofficial. Briefing number 1 was an official briefing at the Pentagon and didn't go farther than to mention that something like UFOs was real based on collected intelligence data, whatever that might mean. Briefing number 2 was described as unofficial, and it's the real bombshell. A full 7 or 8 years before the Santilli film appeared in 95, Green was shown photos of an alien autopsy that was consistent with the being depicted in the Santilli film. Elsewhere in the email exchange, Green goes so far as to say it was the same being. Now that gets a little confusing later on. So let's keep going. The description of briefing number 3 is not especially clear. We are not told what made this a UFO alien related briefing. although presumably something in this briefing must have made it clear to Kit Green. Important note, I wrote earlier today to Kit Green about this, and this is Richard Dolan. Kit Green's full reply was, it was a hoax. This was almost 20 years ago. I learned about a decade ago who and why persons in the government lied to me. You may quote me. I have zero additional comment, but he does. So Richard Dolan replies, I assume we should assume the additional footage information regarding briefings in 81, 87, and 88 in the 90s did take place. It's hard to understand how identical images were shown to you in 87, 88 as what appeared nearly a decade later. I am just pointing out that though these are obvious issues with the information already presented. And Kit Green did reply. He says, you're absolutely right, talking to Richard Dolan. The short answer is, I don't know. The much, much longer explanation is so complex, I have no time in my busy medical practice to explain. Of course. It would take several days I do not have. Cliff Notes version, there are liars in the government too. Yes, there are. There are indeed. The government cannot be trusted on much of anything, in my opinion. Richard Dolan then replied, thank you for this additional comment. This would strongly imply that Santilli wasn't acting on his own in creating whatever it is he created. It would imply he had help from the Pentagon doing it, with planning going back a full decade. From what I could gather regarding the CIA briefing from 91 and 92, it might imply they too were complicit, although it's more of a stretch given the lack of information on that briefing, yet it might be so. For the life of me, I have a hard time envisioning how and why that would have happened. Planning a UFO hoax for nearly a decade, creating fake photos and fake autopsy reports good enough to deceive you, which could not have been easy in the least, and indeed a dangerous thing to attempt because they might easily be caught. Then presumably to give the film to Santilli. Yeah, this is a complicated and involved hoax, if that's what it is. Since there is no way he is going to create out of the whole cloth an exact replica of the alien body without intimate cooperation from the people who lied to you. Richard says, it seems a heck of a strange way to pull off a hoax, a long con that failed almost as soon as it was released. Makes no sense to me. Of course, I am a complete intel outsider. Kit Green's final reply was, the problem with the Santilli film is that there were many versions. Santilli's angst was that when he realized he had been used. I don't think he was part of the later fraud. What I originally reviewed was a real autopsy, but it was one of the 17 projects, several of which are very humanoid looking through puberty. He added that the scenario wasn't all that complicated. A small group of government persons seeking excuse for money who used him for those purposes, and that the autopsy wasn't of an alien, but one of 17 progeria, that is, individuals with the disease progeria, which causes rapid premature aging, which is just tragic and horrible. I might add here, this is Richard, that in my few communications over the years with Kit Green, I am not sure I have communicated with anyone who is as precise in his manner of communication, and few who are as formidable in their intellect. Kit Green isn't just smart, he is very smart. It's not hard to see why he gave science briefings to President Reagan. His answers to my questions seem quite definitive, but I can't help thinking they leave several questions. Yeah, really. Green seems to be saying that his 1987-88 Pentagon briefing from a person in uniform was deliberately designed to fool him into thinking he was being shown photos of an alien autopsy and reports discussing the same. At this, we really have to stop and wonder, No one has seen these reports. They surely would be interesting to read today. Yeah, really. But Kit Green understands autopsy reports exceedingly well. Consider how hard it would be to fool him, not only with photos, but with the report itself. I know that I can't begin to do it. You would need someone every bit as knowledgeable of medicine, biology, and hypothetical alien beings as Green is. If it's true that he was lied to, it would mean that Ray Santilli isn't the primary author of his hoax, which is what we've been led to believe all these years. It would imply that the ground was being prepared many years earlier by the Pentagon and possibly by the CIA. So here I just have to go back to the leaked emails because that is so important in all of this, because they show that Kit Green is aware that there are differences between the bodies and the autopsy, the different brain structure in the heart than in the human body. So those would have to be expertly hoaxed in order to fool him, especially if he was watching an actual autopsy. So, I mean, there's so many things about this that doesn't make sense. A long con that goes on for years. It's a weird situation. It's there's so much confusion in this subject, and things like this really don't help. But let's see. What do you guys think? Been showing your videos off in Ukraine UFOs, been showing your vids of the Ukraine UFOs. Yeah, to friends. Thank you very much, John. I appreciate that. Colton says hello from St. John's, Newfoundland. Very cool. Yeah, I just did a video yesterday or this morning on the Canada UFO survey. They have an annual survey with some really interesting information in there where you get to see, like, for example, the most common UFO reported is a luminous white ball, orb-like thing that may or may not have a physical structure to it. So I just thought that was super fascinating. Yeah, that was really cool. That was really cool. I was really glad I came across that, and I hope you guys got something out of that. I wish there were more comprehensive information about that, because like they'll tell you the time of day that UFOs are seen the most, which is interesting, but it's the time of day when it's dark and when people are looking at the sky. So that's not super helpful. There needs to be a way, to adjust those numbers so that you're looking at, when the actual high peak of activity is. If there is a high peak, I mean, it could just be ongoing at a steady volume all day, every day. But that would be really interesting to know either way. So it would be nice if we could figure out some way to adjust those numbers to reflect what is really going on, not just when people are looking up at the sky. Because the other big thing was the month, and people were seeing UFOs in, the warm parts of the summer in Canada. And I'm in Texas. Here it might be the cooler parts of the summer, or spring, but still, it is so it's the same sort of thing. It's when people are looking up in the sky and they're seeing these things. So it would be nice if there was some way to adjust those numbers to reflect the reality of the phenomenon, and not just when people are looking up. But it's still really interesting, and I'm so glad they're doing that report. And I would love to see more countries do that and release that to the public annually. And so we can look at them and, collate them, or, look at them and compare them. And anyway, but what do you guys think of this Santilli stuff and Kit Green possibly being hoaxed over years with multiple briefings, etc., from the government, trying to get more money for their programs, which wouldn't surprise me at all. I'm sure they get up to unscrupulous things all the time to get more money. But this seems so tenuous and weird, and depending on so many variables, like him not spotting that it was a hoax, and just really unseemly behavior, like possibly using real bodies of humans to do this. It's just really not good. It's really not good at all if that's what happened. but it's just such a weird situation. So I want to continue on. Oh, and by the way, if you wanted to support the channel, please consider leaving a super thanks or super chat, or just become a subscriber, or whatever. There's PayPal, or you can buy one of my books. Whatever. Love to get that support. Helps keeps me going. Really does. So just consider all that good stuff. Let's see. Continue on with what Richard Dolan has to say, because he has a lot more to say, and this is such an interesting situation. If it's true that he was lied to, it means that Ray Santilli isn't the primary author of this hoax. Yeah, we already did that. I know that we all realize that the military and intelligence community lie about things, of course, right? But the magnitude of this would be significant. A decade-long preparation of an alien autopsy hoax by the Pentagon and CIA that is good enough to fool Kit Green, but which quickly falls flat on its face once it is made public. Does this make any sense to you? No, Richard, it does not. It makes zero sense to me. It really doesn't. It makes me think that Kit Green was fed some information that it was a hoax, and shown something that made him believe it was, and that colored his view of the whole thing. And just really made him distrustful. Something happened to make him very distrustful of what he had been experiencing with the government, with these briefings and being shown this information. He does not say what that was that I'm aware of. Beyond that, Richard Dolan says, it would be well to ask why. The point of all this. Kit Green implies money. I guess I don't see how, but okay, money by somehow creating a fake alien autopsy. Money would make sense if you only saw Santilli as the author of the hoax, although even the Wikipedia article on this repeats Santilli's claim that he did see a genuine alien autopsy in the early 90s and was trying to restore his film to match that. But whatever Kit Green saw in 87 or 88, and which was reinforced in 91, 92, was good enough, compelling enough to make him believe. He was adamant that the Santilli alien was identical to what he saw in 87 and 88. And, I've seen people with that disease. They certainly do look, unusual. But I would not compare them to the being in the Santilli footage. To me, that is distinct and inhuman, and not in that way. So not in the way a disease could make one appear. Yeah, I'm at different proportions of arms and legs at different. I don't buy that. I don't buy that. It just seems weird, and for that to go on for so long, and and why fake it? I mean, these guys have got alien bodies. I mean, just on the, not even going into the fringy weird stuff, just looking at the recent stuff that has come out. The Ross Coulthart information, for example, where he talks about how Wright-Patterson Airfield is a parking lot of UFOs retrieved from around the world, and they also have bodies. And this is a mainstream journalist saying this stuff. This isn't fringy. This isn't weird. They've got bodies. They've got alien bodies. Why would they need to fake it? I really don't understand any of that. That doesn't make any sense to me. If you guys have any theories, please let me know in the comments, because I think this is so weird. But continuing with what Richard has to say, most of the rest of the email exchange discusses Green's thoughts on the authenticity of various elements of what is depicted in the Santilli film. These are interesting and worth reading. I keep wondering if something else is going on here. Perhaps the alien autopsy film is fake, but not the fake we've been led to believe. Could it be a fake based on something true and done with outside help? Or hearsay? Could it be real after all? Wouldn't that be something? After all, the stories of alien autopsies were being discussed long before the Santilli film made its appearance in 1995. That's right. Yeah, I think it was around that time that the day after Roswell came out, it was in the 90s. I want to say early 90s. I would have to look that up. In fact, let me do that. day after Roswell released it. Just so I know that. 97. Okay, so that came out. It came out after the Santilli film, which is interesting because there is a chapter on alien autopsies in that book, and Colonel Corso describes the structure, the physiology of the being. Now, I had a different shaped brain. I think he had like 4 lobes that were electromagnetically aligned, which is weird. And he doesn't go into any details about what that means. What does that mean? A brain that is electromagnetically aligned. Colonel Corso also talked about how the being's suit was almost a part of its body, and that both its body and the suit interacted with the field generated by the ship. And it was really weird, really, really intriguing. Nothing like that in the Santilli film. So he wasn't ripping off the Santilli film, but it is interesting that we get alien autopsy information coming out during the 90s. That was the era of alien autopsies, if you will. Really interesting. But Colonel Corso was specifically talking about the creatures recovered at the Roswell crash. And I don't know about the Santilli film, what that was supposed to be. Is that supposed to be Roswell? What is that? If you guys know, let me know. But I don't know offhand what creature that was meant to resemble or to be. Richard Dolan says, I'm not offering a judgment one way or the other right now, except to say that the scenario of the Pentagon lying to Kit Green in 87 and 88 seems odd. I'm not saying it didn't happen that way. I don't know, but something smells wrong. By the way, for those of you wondering if this leak constitutes the previously referred to big news, the answer is no. Okay, yeah, Richard Dolan, I think he's probably talking about the Wilson memo. Yeah, because this was in 2019. And that was pretty big. That was pretty big, guys. That was pretty big. I love the Wilson memo, the Admiral Wilson leak. Let's see. Colton says you should try and collaborate with Bruce. Who's Bruce? Sees all. I don't know if that will work or if you like all his theories, but regardless, he has some pretty remarkable videos of UFOs and moon footage. Okay, cool. Who is Bruce? I'm not familiar with that name. That doesn't trigger a bell. Just seen your videos a few days ago, and I'm glad you're good at what you do. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that Colton. Am I saying that right? The Bearded Jedi says, even evening cosmic addicts. Yeah, I need to get on like a regular schedule with these live chats. Like, does Thursday work for you guys? Is Thursday afternoon? Is that a good time? I need to get like regular. Are evenings better? My wife is home in the evenings, and I'd rather not do it when she's here. But I can. So anyway, but what do you guys think of the alien autopsy stuff? Is that legit? Kit Green was shown alien autopsy stuff long before the Santilli video was created. Was that real? Was it not? Were they hoaxing him over a period of years to get money for their programs? I don't know. Why would they need to hoax him? They've got bodies. They've got ships. The control group has all the money in the world. They from whatever source. Lance Corporal Wygant, who was the military guy who came across the downed UFO in, I want to say, Brazil, and then was arrested by the Air Force because they wanted control of the site, and he was taken to the control group's local base of operations. He was under the impression that, number one, they had shot the ship down, and number two, that the control group or whatever was there had some extra legal means of funding themselves. He believed they were funding themselves with illegal drugs, that the CIA or whoever was actually using drug money to fund the control group. Now, I don't know if he had any proof of that, but at any rate, I do think that the control group has plenty of money. They don't need to fake an alien autopsy video or information, especially when they've already got aliens. So could this have been some other group within the government? Because there are multiple groups, in my opinion, and it's been pretty well documented at this point, that are looking into UFOs. In fact, Jeremy Corbell just did a long post on this on Twitter. Maybe that's one of those new super long posts where he was talking about how there are multiple. Maybe I can just read it for you. He can say it better than I can. Um, well, yeah, I'll just read what Jeremy Corbell had to say. Let's see. Let's say it out loud and with clarity. Let's say it like it is. There are active and durational UFO study programs. Oh, and by the way, I have retweeted this on my Twitter profile. So if you want to read this, join me on Twitter. I'm trying to build my social network platform. And if you're just joining me, this is Jack with Cosmic Road. I've been talking about Kit Green and the alien autopsy information and the leaked emails from Kit Green, where he describes things like the structure of alien bodies and alien hearts and interesting stuff like that. And then I went and talked about the Richard Dolan information, where he had an email exchange with the Richard Dolan about being hoaxed with this alien autopsy stuff. So I'm trying to figure out if that was a hoax, where it could have come from, because it's not from the control group, because they have the alien bodies. So maybe one of these other groups that are doing this. So now I'm reading Jeremy Corbell's tweet, this long tweet where he talks about the various programs that are doing this. Oh, and if you want to support this channel, please consider leaving a super chat or simply hitting the like button or the subscribe button. Either way, it would be super helpful. It keeps this channel going, especially the super chats, I have to say. It keeps me motivated. Jeremy Corbell says, let's say it out loud and with clarity. Let's say it like it is. There are active and durational UFO study programs and multiple government agencies across every branch of our military, many of which George Knapp and I know about. This has bled into contractors and private industry, creating an ecosystem of dangerous and reckless lack of oversight. The idea in law has been forged by Congress where UFO whistleblowers or legacy UFO program employees, as well as current employees, can and must go through a formal process of debrief to bring those illegal programs where they must go for the sake of national security and public interest in national security. This shouldn't have to be a job of journalism. Yeah, really, right? Why should Ross Coulthard and Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp have to, share this with the public? This should be our representatives, right? I mean, they represent us theoretically. So where are they in all this? Why aren't they doing anything? Jeremy says this shouldn't have to be a job of journalism. This should be a job of cleaning house, something that can and should be done on the inside. However, journalists are going to do what we are going to do without asking for permission. You go get them, Jeremy. So this should be clear and straightforward. If there are unknown or illegal programs dealing with non-terrestrial technologies, this is a huge issue for humanity, and so with the cover-up. The chance is there to fix this on the inside. If that is not done, it will be fixed from the outside. All right, you go get him, Jeremy. I love it. I love his attitude. I love his moxie. Oh, thank you very much, a bloke. I appreciate that. It's awesome. Yeah, but Jeremy has a good point. I mean, if they're not going to fix this, somebody's going to fix this. Eventually, the American people are going to start, or the Canadian people, whoever, might even be motivated to vote in politicians specifically to fix this issue. There are many single issue voters out there. And I think we might be entering an era in the near future when that could be one of the single issues. I mean, what could be more important than understanding our place in the cosmos, in what reality we are living in? What are we sharing it with? Who is interacting with us? Who is abducting us, and why? I mean, according to David Jacobs, 5% of human beings worldwide are continuously being abducted and have been for decades, if not much longer. The beings are tweaking bloodlines and changing us generationally. Uh, for what reason? Good reason, I would hope. Bad reason, I don't know. The beings tell people lots of different things. Sometimes those things align, sometimes they don't. And I look at those discrepancies very carefully. I'm very intrigued by those discrepancies. But either way, we are sharing this universe or this reality or uber reality with other beings. And there are certain people in the government that know something about that. They may not know in all the ins and outs of this. I don't think anybody does. Maybe the beings themselves don't know all the ins and outs of this. They may not have all the answers, but they certainly have a lot of them. And there are people in the government that have a lot of those answers too. They represent us, the people. So they need to pony up with that information or they can be voted out. And I can see a point in the near future. We're not there yet, when this has pervaded public consciousness enough where people are going to start voting on that. People like Lou Elizondo have talked about running for office. So, I mean, that would be super fascinating if we entered the era of President Lou Elizondo. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Would that be amazing? So yeah, I'd vote for Lou. I don't even know what his politics are. I'd vote for Lou. But anyway, just super fascinating. Does anybody have any thoughts about the alien autopsy? Who believes in the Santilli footage is real or that it was based on something real? And does anybody have any explanations about why the government would hoax Kit Green with fake alien autopsy footage? Because they've got bodies. They've got bodies. They've got ships. More than bodies, they are working with the beings, or at least some subset of them are working with the beings. That has been reported countless times by very credible people like Terry Lovelace, who has been vetted by Lou Elizondo. Terry Lovelace, military guy, contactee, saw over 50 military guys aboard a giant UFO. He says this thing from the outside was as big as a Walmart, but from the inside, it was even bigger. It was the size of a giant football stadium or something. And so bigger on the inside than the outside, just like Doctor Who. I'm a big Whovian, so I think that's awesome. But at least it's awesome in theory. It's a little bit daunting to think that we are facing these beings. Hopefully facing them in a friendly way. That's why it makes me very nervous when I hear about so many encounters that are negative. And also when I hear about the U.S. military firing on these beings, these UFOs, and in some cases being fired upon or being displaced in the air. Now, there was that really interesting case in Italy that just still boggles my mind, where UFOs were setting fires, and a government helicopter went to check out this activity, and the UFOs fired on them with some sort of energy beam and down the helicopter without hurting anybody. So you do have to note that they did not hurt anybody, but they were setting fires. Again, I have not seen any reports that those fires caused any deaths, although that would be good to know. If you are in Italy and know anything about that, I'll be very curious to know about that. And why were aliens setting fires in Italy? This is a well corroborated case. High level government officials were briefing Lou Elizondo and Tom DeLonge about this on an episode of Unidentified. That's what was one shame about Lou leaving TSA, is that we won't get a third season of Unidentified. I was really enjoying that show. Did y'all check that show out? It was a really good, well done show. Really well produced. Yeah. No Lou. No Lou for president, or no Lou with TTSA. Matthew says, "What's up, Jack?" What's up? What's up, Matthew? Yeah, I've got a good friend named Matthew. Let's see. But yeah, so I don't know what to make of the Kit Green story and the alien autopsy. It's just so weird. All I can think is that either he was hoaxed about the hoax, he was shown something that gave him a lot of doubt as to the people he was working with in the government and what they were presenting him with, or that it was some other smaller program that was looking into UFOs for the government, and they did hoax it because they wanted some funding. I could see how that could potentially happen. I guess if they got somebody with Kit Green's credentials on board to say, hey, yeah, they're actually studying alien bodies, we need to give them some funding to do this. Maybe, but there's, apparently this went on for a couple of years or a few years. And, uh, how does that make sense? It seems like such a tenuous way to get funding for a government program. Why? How does that make sense? That's so out there and so unlikely in my mind. And I am a science fiction writer. So I don't get that. That is just odd. That is odd. That is a conundrum. And why then would they go ahead and compel Santilli to create the alien autopsy footage if that was indeed a fake? Why would they do that? This was 10 years or whatever after Kit Green was shown that information. I think that was 8 years, something like that. So were they using the Santilli to continue their quest for funding? Does that make any sense to you guys? If anybody has any clues, let me know, because I would love to hear your theories on this. Meanwhile, this is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. If you are just joining us, talking about Kit Green, who set the Weird Desk at the CIA, intimately involved with the government's remote viewing project and other psi related stuff, a scientist, really cool cat, really interesting guy in all of this interesting information in the government's involvement in the phenomenon. And there were a series of leaked emails where he describes like what he saw in the alien autopsy. And and there was a really interesting email exchange that he made with Richard Dolan that I've shared. And I'm just trying to figure this thing out because it doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, so let me know your thoughts. Nobody has any ideas because I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. It really does not. Kit Green is not somebody that really makes the rounds on talk shows and podcasts. He really, is a pretty quiet individual who just, I guess, lets his work speak for himself. He's not interested in interacting with the public. He does all of his stuff behind closed doors, and he's interested in pursuing his interest in his business. And he just, but he is somebody that I would love to see come forward. I don't know how old he is now, but I think he's still living, and I would love to see him come out. I mean, can you imagine? Because a lot of the information that we get comes from people nearing the end of their life, and they want to present the truth to the public before they pass. And Kit Green, he's not a young man. It would be interesting if that happened. If he decided, well, heck, I've got nothing else left to lose. I will come forward with what I know, because he probably knows a lot. I would love to know what he knows. And like the Hayim Eshed stuff from Israel. He was a scientist and a brigadier general in Israel. Was involved with their space program for like 2 decades or something. Was it 3 decades? It was a long time. And now at the end of his life, he has been saying that there is a galactic federation and that multiple countries on Earth, including the U.S. and some of our allies, are interacting with the Galactic Federation. I don't know if Kit Green has anything that juicy in his repertoire, but I would love to know what he does have. But yeah, the Haim Eshed stuff is amazing. The whole Galactic Federation stuff. He says, if you're familiar with that story that came out like a couple of years ago, this really intriguing guy from Israel, this really credible, high-ranking individual, very old man, finally wrote a book telling about all of what he knows and about how world leaders all know about this stuff, or at least the ones that are connected to it, and that there is a program on Mars right now where human beings are working with aliens on some project, which dovetails pretty nicely with what some remote viewers have said. So I don't know what that means, what project they could be working on. I would not think that we would be their equals. So why would they want our help in doing anything? Are they teaching us something? Are they coming from possibly a higher dimension or a higher plane of existence, and they don't interact with our reality as well as we do? And so they need us to be their hands or something. I don't know. I don't know. But when they took the contact lenses off the alien, that was interesting. Yeah, that was. And that's something you get from experiencers. Absolutely is, because that is something they say. Many people who experience the grays specifically say they have the black eyes, but some people have actually seen them take those off, and those are just lenses that help magnify the light, presumably. And I think that's what Colonel Corso talked about when they took those lenses and they actually used those to reverse engineer them. And that is what led to our night vision goggles and our night vision technology that we are currently using. So really, really interesting. Of course, it does get confusing because the bodies recovered at Roswell supposedly were not gray aliens. They looked very similar to grays, but they were not grays. And yet it is the grays that are often depicted as having these black contact lenses. So are they using the same technology? Are these possibly different races of being that are involved with the same culture, that are part of the same overall culture? Just like we have a multicultural society here or a multiracial society on Earth that have the same general culture. Could that be what's going on there? I don't know. I don't know. Let's see. Bill Lacey says, for president and still having trouble with people trying to debunk everything, or person channels like Goofon. I don't know Goofon. I'm not sure. Can you explain what Goofon is? But okay, well, there's one vote against Lou, I think, for president. Yeah, too bad, Lou. You lost a vote. But does anybody have any other questions or anything they want to talk about? I've been going for about an hour. I'm happy to stay longer if anybody has anything they want to talk about, or any theories on what you think the alien autopsy situation was. Was the Santilli stuff a hoax? Was the stuff shown to Kit Green a hoax to get funding? How does that make any sense? Does anybody have any theories on how A, that makes sense, or B, doesn't make sense? Um, are the aliens planning on an invasion based on the uptick of activity in the Italy stuff? Yeah, that's a good question. I talked about that with the Canadian survey. I think that's really, one of the big values of that survey, of the annual report, in things like it, assuming there are other things like it, is that it showed, well, according to that survey, there is not an uptick in activity. In fact, it decreased a little this year from last year. And it was several years ago that it reached a peak. So that's not to say that that's the end of the story, or that survey is accurate or not, because I know several people who see UFOs regularly who say they are seeing more activity now. So just because the survey says it doesn't make it true. But it is very interesting to consider. And that really shows the value of that survey. If that information could be relied on, it would seem to indicate that there's not an increase in activity. But again, I'm not saying that that's the gospel or the final word on all this. Let me read some of your comments. Yeah, News Arc says it was just a cheeky hoax. Well, it was certainly a hoax. I mean, it was certainly, well, I don't know, cheeky. No, in that particular context, if he was right about that. But Alan says, I for one would welcome our new alien overlords. Yeah, right. Yeah, time to get in on the ground floor of that empire, right? JD says, seems real, too elaborate for a hoax. It is really compelling. It is really compelling footage. It is really, really compelling. The Santilli autopsy, there is the quote attributed to Stan Winston, the special effects guru, who said, if that's fake, then I'll hire those guys on the spot. Because he didn't understand how that could be done when they were cutting the flesh and how it looked so authentic. Again, that quote could be apocryphal. I've never seen that quote confirmed, but that is a quote often attributed to Stan Winston upon seeing that footage. If anybody knows of whether that's been debunked or not, let me know. But yeah, it is the autopsy video is very compelling. News Arc says it might be nice to have a deep dive into Roy Schneider. Roy Schneider. When I think of Roy Schneider, I think of the actor in Jaws, but that can't be right. Who's Roy Schneider? A bloke says Vinny on Disclosure Team did a video on the alien autopsy video a couple of weeks ago. Okay, I may have to look that up. What was his conclusion? Did he think it was legit or not legit? Yeah, is the military looking for ocean bases? Have we located any? Well, there's been some interesting stuff. What was the what's it called? The Miami structure. What's the name of that thing? Is that flat surface and then it's got pillars on the ocean floor? Some people say that's just a trick of light and that it's nothing. But there are other places on the ocean floor that are very anomalous. There are those deep grooves in the two places where you can see there's these grooves in the ocean floor that nobody can explain. One of them is near Antarctica. I forget where the other one is. I think it's in the Atlantic. Anyway, so there's weird stuff on the ocean floor, and these ships come and go from the ocean all the time. They may or may not be more at home in the ocean than they are in the air. So, which would make sense because what are you going to do in the air, right? I mean, unless you have a floating base in the air, basically the air is just a medium of, you're going through the air, going to somewhere. So is that to the ocean, to space? Are they going through the ocean to the bottom of the sea, to subterranean caverns beneath the ocean? Because there are so many reports of these beings living in vast caverns. But they could live in the ocean. I came across a really interesting video the other day saying there were mer people in like Malaysia or something. They had been building a dam, and the locals would go underwater as part of this dam building effort, where they would encounter these mer beings, and it would freak them out, and they would leave. Apparently, they were not friendly mer beings, so they hired some outsiders, people from outside the country, some gringos, to go down there to complete the job, thinking it was just local superstition. But the gringos said the same thing. They said there's crazy, evil mer people down there, and we're not doing it. We are boogieing on out. So I mean, I'm not saying that's a legit story. I'm just saying there's some weird stuff in the water. Who knows? Let's see. There's the cat. Oh, yeah, absolutely. JD says there's the Catalina Island magnetic anomaly, where so many sightings happen, UFO and USO. Yeah, absolutely. I love the Catalina Island stuff. And there's that great movie, A Tear in the Sky. If you haven't seen that, I recommend it, where they placed a bunch of cameras on a rooftop in the Catalina Islands. And at the end of the movie, they see, and this is a documentary, at the end of the movie, they observe a tear in the sky. this like portal like thing opens in the sky over the Catalina Islands and ships come through. I mean, that is what it looks like from this footage. So yeah, awesome movie, awesome documentary that was made a year or two ago, very recent. And the Catalina Island stuff, the Tic Tac incident, the Nimitz incident in 2004. Well, the Tic Tac was just one ship of many ships. Apparently there were possibly 100 ships over the course of a week that were just kind of hanging around in that area. And after the end of that week, after the Tic Tac incident, they moved on and they went to the Catalina Islands, where apparently they went into the water and vanished. And there's so much activity in the Catalina Islands. So yeah, I definitely think there's stuff going down. It's unclear to me if they live in the ocean or if they live below the ocean, but they definitely are interacting with the ocean a lot. Not just the ocean, but there's been a lot of UFO sightings over lakes as well, which is really intriguing. I think Ingo Swan's encounter with Axelrod happened at a lake. I could be misremembering. If anybody can say, let me know. A bloke said he said it was fake, but it was copied off an earlier video that could be real. Yeah, that could very well be the case. That could very well be the case. That Santilli recreated an existing video, and that original video was what Kit Green was shown. I think that's highly possible. But why did he come away from the whole series of incidents with the impression that it was a hoax? What led him to believe that? I wish that had been included in the email leak, because I want to get to the bottom of that. Let's see. JD says the Nomo Merbeings, the Dogon, I don't know spelling, the tribe that knew about all the planets that are not visible to human eyes, and the Pleiades. Okay, I don't know much about that. They tell tales of the Nomo. Okay, I'm gonna have to look the Nomo up. I mean, I believe in Bigfoot. Why not mer people? I mean, honestly. So, it makes sense, right? I mean, it makes as much sense as Bigfoot. It makes as much sense as aliens, as much as elk hunting aliens. But if you've seen the recent Missing 411, the UFO Connection documentary by David Paulides, they talk about elk hunting aliens. Yeah, there's actually evidence that aliens are hunting elk, and also elk hunters. So, yeah. Anyway, the Mawson's UFO Files on Prime Video is amazing. Okay, I'll have to check that out. Must see. Have you heard of that Mexican reporter or that movie? Let's see. Yes, there's the famous Mexican UFO reporter, if I'm remembering correctly, his nationality, that has so many UFO videos and some really exciting activity south of the border. What do they call them? The flotillas of UFOs that they're seeing down there. They'll see hundreds of UFOs just pass through the sky all at the same time in broad daylight. It's amazing the stuff they're seeing south of the border. It really is fantastic. And I think that he's one of the people bringing that to us. And he also had the spotlight UFOs. He had a compilation of spotlight UFOs, those UFOs that appear like spotlights. The Ben Hansen sort of thing. He's been sharing one or two incidents that, well, I call the spotlight UFOs because that's what they look like. And that's what people who are debunking them try to say they are, even when there's no spotlights or anything that could be creating the spotlights in the area. And these things are seen all over the world. So if it's a hoax, it's a worldwide hoax with no clear goal or agenda. That's not to say that some of these couldn't be hoaxes, but yeah, it's really weird. Anyway, but yeah, if I'm remembering right, that reporter is one of the main guys bringing those to us. as well as many other great sightings and encounters. So yeah, really, really cool guy. Really cool guy. Alien Girl says, "Hi, Kit." Yeah, I would love to meet Kit. Well, that'd be cool. Mr. Gray says, "G'day, Mr. Cosmic." In chat room at large. Hey guys. Alien Girl says, "Hi, alien friends." Let's see. News Arc says, "I meant Phil Schneider." Okay, yeah, yeah. And deep underground military bases. Yeah, yeah. I'm familiar with Phil Schneider and all that stuff. I've seen some people that have managed to debunk Phil Schneider. I think with the Y Files did an episode on that, or it was part of one episode. But his stuff is very compelling. And the videos that I've seen of the deep underground military bases, because there are people that have sent drones close to those things, or even done flyovers of those of areas close by, where they've been able to kind of get the zoom on and show those exteriors of the DUMBs, the deep underground military bases, and those videos are very compelling. I've got to say, I am persuaded that the DUMBs exist, that the deep underground military bases exist, and if the DUMBs exist, it's very likely that some part of the secret space program exists. Not necessarily the Corey good stuff, but some stuff. We are working with the beings, and there are ships that come and go, and we may be on some of those ships. So that seems to be a thing, and that corroborates Terry Lovelace and all the many, many countless experiencers that have seen government officials and military people working with the beings, alongside the beings. And it's easy to get, to conflate that with the MyLabs, but those are distinct phenomena. The MyLabs, the beings are not involved, but the military guys doing the MyLabs, the military abductions, seem to use some of the same equipment and technologies and techniques. So it gets weird. It's hard to say what the hell is going on. Really don't. But yeah, the Phil Schneider stuff was really compelling. And his mysterious suicide. So many people that have looked into stuff like that have committed suicide. uh I'm on the fence about Bill Schneider, but looking at the circumstances around his suicide, it's really hard to see how he could have committed suicide in the manner he did. He didn't even have the fingers on the hand that would enable him to do it. He was terrified that he was going to get suicided. This is a subject that people that look into seem to meet mysterious ends. So, I think there was some truth telling in what he had to say. He does seem to have had some mental issues. He does seem to have struggled with some stuff. So I think that some of his information may have gotten a little confused with the truth. And it could be that his mental problems were deliberately brought on. I mean, you think of DARPA and the stuff that the government is doing with mental manipulation, and that doesn't seem too outside of the box. But yeah, the whole Phil Schneider situation is sad and tragic, and it's very unclear to me what was going on there. But I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Let me know what you think. Mm. Yeah, JD says Jaime Mason, a Mexican reporter, so interesting. Yeah, really great guy. Leoxy says only 30 seconds long, 38 seconds long. Oh, see, I missed what you were talking about. Roswell, 1947 alien footage. Oh, are you talking about when they get the bodies that are brought out, and you get to like count their fingers and see that they're different from like some of the other beings? I think the Roswell beings, I want to say they had 5 or 6 fingers, including the thumb, and like the Greys typically only had like 3 fingers. So another differentiation. I can't say the word differentiation between the Greys and the beings at Roswell. By the way, if you're just joining us, this is Jack with Cosmic Road, here with a live stream with a great audience, a great chat, and talking about whatever. We started talking about Kit Green and alien autopsies, and I would still love to hear your thoughts on it. Let's see. Yeah, please hit like, please subscribe, share it on social media, all that kind of good stuff. Support the channel by leaving a super chat or whatever. That'd be awesome. Keeps the channel going, keeps me motivated. Let's see. Would be good to see his Vietnam records. Is that Phil Schneider? Yeah, yeah, because there was some discrepancies about his early supposed his military records. Yeah, absolutely. When we enter foreign territory, America bribes warlords to help us in foreign countries. So maybe the aliens are bribing generals to help them. Hey, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, I have been persuaded over the last few months that ARVs exist. Um, I think I've shown 4 different corroborations from different sources over different decades that human flown and created or partially created UFOs existed since the 1960s, and that beings, non humans, helped us achieve that, helped us build that, helped train us. Um, and I don't know where I was going with that, but bribing us with technology. And so, was that us being bribed with technology in exchange for allowing them to abduct people or take resources from the planet? It's unclear what they want. Some have said it has to do with souls, that they are interested in the recycling of souls, involved in the reincarnation process. I really don't like reincarnation. I don't like that idea at all. That just really does not work for me. Excuse me. However, I have to acknowledge that the evidence for reincarnation is very strong and very compelling, and it's there. And I do a lot of research into spirituality and metaphysics, and I have some minor, or I wouldn't say minor, but I have some interaction there, and some experiences, and I know it's real, and I'm fascinated by it. And reincarnation, like it or not, does seem to be kind of part of it. I'm hoping it's optional, but there are various experiencers that say that the beings are very interested in our souls and where we go when we die. Others are saying that no, they're actually here to upgrade us spiritually and to help us achieve a higher level of consciousness and connection to spirit. Others say they want to hijack our souls or our ability to have souls and go somewhere else when we die. So, I mean, there's so much conflicting information on all of this. It's maddening. It's frustrating. It's exciting because there's so many possibilities that are out there, and this stuff is real. But if we could just get some straight answers on it, that'd be so nice. That's why we need the government to actually tell the truth to us. Wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be amazing to get people that are representing us to tell us the truth about what reality we're living in? Just a thought, crazy thought. Yeah, black and white old footage. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The Roswell video. I have seen that, and that's very compelling. If we're thinking of the same thing about the bodies being removed from the crash scene at Roswell, the black and white footage where you can count their fingers, etc. Yeah, Mr. Gray says, "Get in here." Yeah, that's right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see. Niall says, "What's up? What's up, man? What are your thoughts on Bob Lazar and the Brazil crash?" Well, which Brazil crash, right? There's so many of them. Are you talking about Lance Corporal Weigand? Maybe you're talking about the Virginia case. Yeah, absolutely. You're probably talking about the Virginia case because that's the documentary that just came out. Great documentary by James Fox. A moment of contact. Am I getting that name? Am I getting that right? A great case where some beings came out of the craft and were wandering around town, possibly dying. And one was captured alive. Were they both captured alive? But then they both passed away very sadly. And one of the officers that captured one of the beings came in contact when he arrested or tackled the being and seized him. He very shortly died, contracted a rare form of cancer, I believe, if I'm remembering that right, and passed away. But there are many witnesses to that event, very credible. Yeah, no, I absolutely believe the Virginia case and that information. James Fox has been teasing us with actual video of the of one of the beings. Apparently, there is a family in that area that actually took video of one of these beings and has been sitting on it all these years. And he knows who it is, but it's private property, and he can't get access to it. And they won't release it to him, but at least not yet. But he is working on them, and maybe somebody else, somebody can pay them enough to release that. Of course, people will just say it's CGI. You would think that that would be the smoking gun, but such is the era that we live in. And people are right to be skeptical because there is so much hoaxing being done with CGI. It's really disheartening. Let's see. Oh, Alien Girl, a new sub here. Thank you very much for joining the channel. Appreciate it. I hope you enjoy your time here and get something out of it. But yeah, about Niles, you wants to know about Bob Lazar. Yeah, I believe Bob. I'm pro Bob. Some people are anti Bob. I'm pro Bob. So much of what he has said, the hand scanner, the guy that hired him that nobody could find for decades, who finally showed up and was identified a couple of years ago. Just every little thing. Knowing when they were test flying the vehicles and being able to take people out to view the test flights like 3 weeks in a row or something, until ultimately they were, scared off by the cops. Yeah. So, I believe Bob. I do think there's more going on with Bob than even he knows, because he has talked about how he was made to drink this weird pine flavored drink when he went to work at S4, and he was also forced to undergo hypnosis. And he remembers at one point it was actually a recovered memory. He was walking into a hotel room years later and had this recovered memory of interacting with a being in the hospital area where he was hypnotized and probably given this drink at S4 near Area 51. So if he has one recovered memory, if he has one deleted memory, I should say, think of how many other deleted memories he probably has. And if he was interacting with one being during that incident, think of how many other times he must have interacted with beings and then had his mind wiped, which is consistent with what many, many people have said at that level. The beings are working with the control group. I just made a video a week or two ago about, what was his name? Don Phillips, who was the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works engineer who had friends that were working with the beings. And he was told this back in the 60s. They were helping humans create this training device so they could fly their own UFOs, which we now know as the ARVs from Mark McClandish. I think he's the one that popularized that word. Another person that tragically met his end before his time. But yeah, so the beings were working with humans back in the 60s, creating this training device so that we could fly our own UFOs. And we've been flying them ever since. I forgot where I was going with that, but yeah, I guess the point is, yeah, I remember where I was going with it. Can't fool me. That is consistent with the idea that Bob Lazar could have been working with the beings. And, because I've always wondered, if indeed we are working with the beings, why the hell would we need to reverse engineer ships? Why would Bob Lazar still be working on reverse engineering these ships in the 90s or late 80s when we have been working with the beings for decades and presumably flying around doing stuff? So how do those two things go together? Are they different programs? Because Bob Lazar was working at Area 51 and S4, you would assume that that would be part of the control group. So why would they not have their own ships and all that other stuff? But it makes sense if Bob Lazar was hypnotized and he had his he was working with the beings there, and then they deleted that from his mind. And the weird drink he was made to drink and the hypnosis he was made to undergo facilitated that somehow, made it easier. That's my guess. That's my best guess right now is that Bob was working with the beings at Area 51, and that was deleted from his mind. Um, and so I think that so I believe Bob, but I do believe that his memory was probably tampered with. And was he working on the sport model or was he doing something completely different? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, guys. Well, what do you guys think? Let me know. This video needs to come out. Yeah, man. The Virginia alien video needs to come out. It really does. I can't wait to see that video. Leoxy says, to me personally, it's proof that the alien autopsy is real. Abel Oak says that footage you showed of the U.A.P scanning at the car with the green laser was very compelling. Yeah, I love that footage. I think that's some of the best footage I've ever seen. Honestly, that was really amazing and seemed very legit. I don't believe that was CGI. It would have had to have been done practically, but I'm trying to think of ways they could have done that in 2013 with the zero budget and 0 point. I mean, they weren't making any money on that. So I don't see how that could have been done, by hoaxers. I believe that was legit footage and really amazing. You get to see this UFO descend from the sky and scan this car with a green beam. I'm assuming that it did that just to give him something to film. Because I think when they don't want to be seen, usually they're not seen. Sometimes you can catch them. But usually if they don't want to be seen, they're not seen. So I think it wanted him to see it. And it gave him something to video. It gave him a shot. It gave him a little narrative for his film. Aliens coming down, scanning his car, and going off slowly. That's what I think. I can't think of why else it would be scanning his car. I mean, these things are very advanced. I mean, if it wanted to scan his car, surely it could do it from orbit if it wanted to, right? It could probably do it with remote viewing from the other side of the world or worlds or realities. So, I mean, why was it scanning his car? I mean, I can only think it wanted just to give him something to video. JD says, I love that video. Oh my God, the green light was looking for the man. Hey, it could have been. Maybe it was looking, it saw the car and it said, hey, I'm in the mood to abduct somebody. Let's scan this car and see if there's a guy in there that we can abduct. It could be. But I mean, again, wouldn't they have been able to sense him or see him? I don't know. Bloke says the way the craft rotated was just like the gimbal. Yep. Did Bob work under the Navy or Air Force? That's a great question because I think the paycheck that he showed or whatever it was showed Navy, which is weird because we're talking S4 and Area 51, which should be under the auspices of the Air Force. Of course, if it was the Navy for some weird reason, then that might explain why they weren't working with the beings if they weren't, and why they didn't have their own ships. Maybe the Navy's just got the leftover, pieces and, some craft, but the Air Force has got the juicy stuff and they're the ones working with the beings and flying around in ships. So that could make sense, I guess. And there are Navy bases that work with UFOs inland. There is that, I think Ben Hansen on his TV show, what is it called? Did an episode on that. There's a Navy base in Ohio on a frozen lake in Ohio where the Navy tested submarines because it's a very deep lake. It's an absurdly deep lake in this very cold area in Ohio. And there are fireball UFOs seen all the time in that area. And that episode, gave numerous witness accounts of fireballs. And there was one incident where a woman decided to chase one of these fireball UFOs because it was descending toward the ground, in a controlled manner. And she approached it where she thought it was setting down, and the military blocked her off and told her to go home. So the Navy is working with somebody. They've got some ships, or they're working with somebody. They're doing some stuff. Absolutely, the Navy is involved in this. Now, I don't know if they're as involved as the Air Force, although who knows? It could be more involved. But so that's a good question about Bob. I wish I knew, but that is a fascinating question to consider. And really fascinating. Who's doing what. Let's see. JD says he still has the W-2 they made at his identifying paperwork. Okay, yeah, that's that's the W-2. I guess that's what I was thinking about. Thank you for clarifying that. Let's see. All right, guys. Well, I've been going for about an hour and a half. But does anybody have any questions they'd like to bring up or anything? Anybody have any thoughts about Kit Green or the alien autopsy video or any of this stuff? I've got more water. I can keep going, but it has been about an hour and a half. Jack, any thoughts about remote viewing and Mars session? Well, I did a video about remote viewing Mars, and I've watched a couple of different remote view Mars, and that is okay. So one of those videos was done by the Farsight Institute, who I was a big fan of because they are so good. People like Daz Smith and Dick Algier work with them, but they no longer work with them. And why? I would like to know. I might want to interview Daz and find out. But Farsight has the person running Farsight is a really great organizer and a great runner of remote viewers. But I begin to worry about his capacity in some ways, and he has gotten more and more colorful over the years. And since the controller is linked to the remote viewer, I'm worried that maybe have influenced their remote viewings, because the Farsight Institute, their findings of the remote viewings has gotten progressively weirder and weirder over the years, and in painting a very consistent negative view of the cosmos and of the beings. And there are certain things in what they have found that I just don't buy. But they did a really good remote viewing of Mars and saw beings working on Mars. They called it like a hardship mission for these beings that looked human. And so I'm wondering if this was that information shared by Haim Ashed, where he says humans and aliens were working alongside each other on Mars. So could that be what they were seeing? I don't know, but they were saying it. It was at this weird base that seemed to be kind of a doomed base. And these people, the beings that were there, were expecting it to be a one-way ticket. So I don't know about that, but I have seen so much credible information that there's beings on Mars, either now or in the past. So absolutely, Mars is or was occupied, and I believe that 100%. I mean, that seems to be pretty solid. And I have done other videos showing how NASA whistleblowers have seen photos of structures on the moon. And I think Mars as well, but I wouldn't swear to it. So there's stuff going on the moon and Mars. The beings are up there doing something. And apparently there's some people up there too doing something. I don't know what. Let's see. JD says he was saved because he said he had 100. Yeah, element 115. Yeah, that's right. Balbazar. and he was going to light up the city. I mean, that would be a deterrent to arresting him, right? If he had element 115 and was prepared to use it. It is interesting that element 115 is a very different energy source than some experiencers have reported. I haven't seen a lot of corroboration on element 115, and I would really like to see that. To corroborate Bob's story even more, it would be nice to see some other experiencers saying, yeah, they use this substance. What you typically get, if you get anything at all, is that it's like 0 point energy and stuff like that. Niall said I was referring to CIA session from a million years. Oh yeah. There was a they remote viewed. Was it Ingo Swann who remote viewed Mars and saw life on Mars a million years ago? There were beings on Mars, and there was a cataclysmic event on Mars. Something looked like it was a natural event, some weather event or geological event or series of events, some series of catastrophes that led to the destruction of that culture. But their remains are still there, and there is still some sort of life on Mars, according to that viewing. But yeah, I'm familiar with that viewing. Remind me, was that Ingo? Who was that? But yeah, fascinating viewing. Alan says there is a remote viewing app that is available. I played around with it some time ago. Wow, a remote viewing app. How does that work? Yeah, I've got to investigate that. Do you think Element 115 would create a more powerful nuke? Yeah, I mean, if Element 115 is legit, and we could use it, I mean, obviously Element 115 is legit, but the stabilized form that Bob is talking about, if that can be obtained or created, yeah, that probably would be more powerful than conventional nuke. Probably would. Yeah, Ingo Swan. Am I into Bob Lazar? Me? Yeah, I'm into Bob. Yeah, but yeah, I think Bob is on the level. I think Bob is on the level. But I do think that his memory was probably tampered with by the beings or by the military or both. It's not clear to me. But so I don't think everything he says can be relied upon. But not because he's lying. Um, um, but although he is a colorful character and has done some colorful stuff. But yeah, no, I think Bob is on the level. I'm pro Bob. Are you pro Bob or anti Bob? And if you're just joining us, this is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. We're talking about Kit Green and alien autopsies and whatever you guys want to talk about. If you want to support the channel, please consider leaving a super chat or just signing up, becoming a subscriber, or hitting the like button. Alien Girl says, I agree. Very cool. Not because he's lying, because he is confused. Yeah. Pro Bob. Yeah, good. Yeah. Alien Girl says, I think Bob Lazar was the fall guy for a real physicist who worked on back engineered craft. Okay. That's intriguing. I would like to know more about that theory. JD says, Tom DeLong said Bob is a hero. I agree. I think Bob is a hero. He was one of the early whistleblowers, really the seminal whistleblower, the whistleblower, right? With a capital T, capital W. He's the one that made it cool for all the other whistleblowers, right? Yeah, I love Bob, love George Knapp, and that amazing documentary that Jeremy Corbell did, utilizing a lot of George's footage and information. I think it was just called Bob Lazar. I forget what it was called. It had that great narration by, was it Mickey Rourke? It was just fantastic narration, just a beautifully made movie. Really, really great movie. And yeah, if you haven't seen that, check it out. But yeah, love Bob. I would love to know if he did have some tampered memories or deleted memories, and what was deleted. What is the truth? If the Navy was writing his paychecks at S4, what does that mean? Because shouldn't that be Air Force? It's just so interesting. How does what are the mechanics and the logistics of all that? Who is doing what? I don't know. Alien Girl says, I am working on something that I need to bounce off others. Well, do you want to bounce it off now, or do you need more time to work it up? No pressure. Niall says, will you be doing regular live sessions? Yeah, I'm going to try to. I think that I need to do this regularly. I need to like set a day. I mean, does Thursday work for you guys? Thursday afternoon, is that a good time to do it? Linda Moulton Howe does her thing on Wednesday, and George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell seem to be releasing their stuff at midnight on Tuesday. I mean, not that I'm competing with them, but I know there are, y'all might be watching, that, and I don't blame you. So I don't want to have to go up against the big guys. So, I mean, Thursday afternoon seems like a pretty good time for me, if that works for you. So I think that I'm going to try to plan to do a weekly Thursday afternoon, 2:30 my time, 2:30 Central. Alien Girl says I can bounce it off for sure. Okay, great. Oh yeah, I love Linda. Linda's great. Yeah, Linda's one of my favorites. She's one of the few people that aren't afraid to go to the woo. And I love that because I think the woo is a big part of this. I have experienced with woo, and I love the woo. The woo is awesome, and she is. And it makes sense that the beings, being more advanced, would be more familiar with the woo, and so of course they would be, doing stuff with the woo, and she talks a lot about that, and I love that. I love that. Alien Girl says go live every day. Maybe, right? Love Linda too. Well, I am running out of water, Alien Girl, but I don't want to leave you hanging. Do you want to present your theory, or do you want to save that for next time? Go live every day, yeah, right. You have a channel, okay, great. Well, I'm gonna have to. Let me just go to your channel and subscribe. Okay, can't do that. Let me just go on to YouTube and hit Alien Girl. Alien Girl 101. Okay, here we go. All right. Okay, there we go. Okay, I just subscribed and I'm hitting the bell. All right, guys. Yeah, I look forward to checking your channel out. Starseed panel. Okay, cool. Are you a starseed? Because I had one person that did a healing on me, like a energy healing on me, that said he was reading that I was this was my first incarnation on Earth, and that I was a being from somewhere else. They came in just for this time. He didn't call it a starseed. That's usually what a starseed is referred to. However, just to make things more complicated, I have had other people who have seen past lives, human past lives in me, or that I have had human past lives. So it gets a little confusing. Emailing you the documentary. Okay, great. I'm looking forward to that. Let's see. Alan says I've just subscribed to. Awesome, guys. I really appreciate it. All right. Well, Alien Girl, let's save talking about your theory for next time, or we could do a joint video talking about that kind of stuff. I'd love that. That'd be awesome. Well, Alien Girl is okay. I don't want to leave you hanging. Pacifica University is not a real college. That's really the crux of my issue with Lazar. Yeah, there's some discrepancies. There are, and there's some like the teacher that he said he had wasn't actually teaching at that location. He was like somewhere far distant, and anyway, so yeah, there's some issues with this story, no doubt. He actually apparently told Joe Rogan after their interview the truth behind some of that stuff. And but he was swore Joe to silence, and whatever he told Joe Rogan convinced Joe. That sounded reasonable to Joe, and I'm assuming, and yeah, he has not shared that with anybody that I know of, not publicly. I'm assuming it's something that makes Bob look bad, like he faked his records, something like that. So that is what I think probably went down, is that he fudged some stuff and just doesn't want to talk about that publicly, but that would make sense and would explain some of his discrepancies. But anyway, let's see. All right, guys. Well, I think I'm going to head out. It's a beautiful day here in Texas. It's like our first nice day in weeks. So I'm going to get outside and enjoy some sunlight. But thank you guys very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Till then, this is Jack with Cosmic Road signing out.